But inside the Harris campaign, everyone's just as depressed as Timmy the cat lady. Axios reports that Kamala's campaign manager started crying during a conference call last night. And Harris told them, quote, "Yeah, this sucks." Her staffers were sad but confused. One said, "We're told the fate of democracy is at stake." And then the message was, "We'll get him next time." Kamala is saying, "We'll get Hitler next time." Her interns are just finding out the whole dictator thing was just a talking point.
Don't y'all find it strange that now that he's won, they're not calling him a threat to democracy? They're not calling him a fascist? I mean, damn, on Monday.
They're not calling him anything.
On Monday, they was just calling him that. I would think that, if you really believe that, then somebody's speech would be about how America effed up and how things are about to be really bad.
He's the most powerful man in the world now.
Well, it just makes you wonder how much of it did they really believe, or how much of it was just politics.
The Harris team's getting a little antsy with Kamala, and they're starting to leak. Staff is saying the campaign was constantly confused, and no one knew how to make a decision. Getting approval to tweet something was like figuring out how to solve a Rubik's Cube. And now the Harris campaign's pleading with staffers to stop leaking, please. So most of them are just going back to blaming Biden. One member of the Harris campaign says the 107-day Harris campaign was nearly flawless. The Biden campaign that preceded it was the opposite. And the Obama guys are just piling on.
Joe Biden's decision to run for president again was a catastrophic mistake. It just was. And he and his inner circle, they refused to believe the polls. They refused to believe he was unpopular. They refused to acknowledge until very late that anyone could be upset about inflation. And they were privately telling reporters at the time that Kamala Harris couldn't win. So they were shivving Kamala Harris to reporters while they told everyone else, not a time for an open process, and his vice president can't win, so he's the strongest candidate. Then we find out when the Biden campaign becomes the Harris campaign, that the Biden campaign's own internal polling at the time when they were telling us he was the strongest candidate showed that Donald Trump was going to win 400 electoral votes.
Nancy Pelosi hasn't spoken to Biden since after the coup, and that'll continue. After she told the New York Times, had the president gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. Now she's not speaking to Kamala. And she's still fuming that Biden's quick Kamala endorsement boxed her in. Nancy says it made it impossible for Democrats to have a primary. Things would have been different. Translation, Shapiro would have won, and we would have had the first Jewish president, says Nance. Biden world is saying, you got to be kidding me. How did you spend $1 billion and not win? What the F? Biden's folks say Kamala was destined to lose.
There is a real question I hope people start looking at about who people are listening to. In my view, there was an over-listening to and an over-lifting up of people who left Trump, not people who left the Democratic Party. The people who left the Democratic Party are the people who are going to win in the future. The people who left Trump, the never-Trumpers who have important voices and that is not the winning coalition.
Turns out closing with Liz Cheney was pretty stupid. Even Jon Stewart says the Harris campaign was stuck in the past.
Turns out that people knocking on other people's doors doesn't get them to do what you want them to do. As I believe vacuum and Bible salesmen probably have known for many, many centuries. F us, f me. I was wrong. Will continue to be wrong.
They didn't just lose to Trump. They lost the Senate, the House, Hispanic men, the Blue Wall, the Sun Belt, and millions of votes in the bluest cities. So there's no way Kamala recovers from this. We're hearing she might run for governor of California and take Newsom's job when he runs for president. So who's going to lead the party out of the wilderness? The Obamas? Democrats say no thanks. Party insiders say it's time for fresh blood. But David Axelrod says before we have a power struggle, we've got to recognize we're out of touch.
You can't approach working people like missionaries and say, we're here to help you become more like us. There's a kind of unspoken disdain, unintended disdain in that. I think Biden has done, programmatically some good things for working people, but the party itself has increasingly become a smarty pants, suburban, college-educated party, and it lends itself to the kind of backlash that we've seen.
The Clinton syndicate thinks Democrats are just too extreme.
I'm not concerned right now what the right thinks about the Democratic Party. I'm concerned about what I think about the Democratic Party. I don't like, to echo the congressmen, all three of them, I don't like the fact that a small portion of our party is pretty much dictating where we are. That they are pretty much, we are being branded as the most extreme of us. We need to take stock of why we are being held hostage to the far left. No one should be and wants to be kowtowing to the extremes of their own parties.
America's sick of the Democrats, and the country's moving right on immigration and energy. And if Democrats don't find a new approach and fast, they'll be out of power for years. That's what Newt Gingrich predicted here last night. So what are Democrats going to do? Well, they're plotting another coup. The machine wants to force Justice Sotomayor into early retirement. She's 70 and has diabetes, and install Kamala Harris in the lame duck session. I, for one, think that's a great idea, and I would like nothing more than to cover this until Christmas. But before they try the woman of color coup court thing, the Washington Post says the second resistance starts right now. Newsom is calling an emergency session in California to Trump-proof the state, whatever that means. The New York Attorney General, Tish James, just declared the lawfare campaign not over. She's prepared to fight back. And the governors of Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Illinois are preparing for trench warfare.
Every tool in the toolbox has got to be used to protect our citizens, to protect our residents, and protect our states, and certainly to hold the line on democracy and the rule of law.
As we respect the peaceful transition of power, that if there is any attack on the Garden State or on any of its communities from Washington, I will fight back with every fiber of my being.
To anyone who intends to come take away the freedom and opportunity and dignity of Illinoisans, I would remind you that a happy warrior is still a warrior. You come for my people, you come through me.
The second Trump resistance is coming into focus. It'll be blue state governors clashing with Trump to raise their profiles ahead of the 2028 election. This is a competition to be Trump's biggest nemesis. Who will be this year's Adam Schiff or James Comey? We're about to find out. So watch these figures jockey for position to get on a collision course with 47. Does this help the American people at all? No. But Democrats don't care, because so far they've learned nothing from Tuesday. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.